Now that you mention it, I've been thinking the same thing. Let's see what you have to say about it. Thank you to our $5 patrons, Sinus Lancelot and Artgoon. And a big thank you to our $25 patron, the Mr. Greed. Now, before we have this breakdown, / reaction, / whatever you really want to call it, of how MHA ruined Mirio Togata by Oceaniz, please, if you're going to leave your own thoughts on this video in the comment section down below, leave a like and subscribe if you aren't already. Also, make sure that little notification bell so you miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Also, I do have a Patreon down below where you can support me for as low as $1 a month. Any support would be appreciated. Now, let's get into it. What's up, guys? thatguywiththepencil, and here we are to review, react, break doan. I don't know, this is my first time viewing the video because I saw it pop up in my sub box today. I was like, you know, I was just going to watch it on my own, but I forgot I even do these on the channel. Well, no, I didn't forget, because I still know I need to react to the perfection of Tomoaki Shigaraki, oh my. Also by Oceaniz. But, I know that is going to be like a 3-hour reaction of me sitting there and pausing a million times. So I really do not want to risk it. I don't want to risk starting that recording and then having to come back to it. So you're most definitely going to have to wait a second for your boy to get on that one. However, just because I saw this video, I want to react to it. And fun fact, if you're new to my reactions, I've only done 2 of them on the channel so far. So I pause a lot. That's why they call it breakdowns / reactions. Because I be breaking it down. So if you want to watch the original video, the link will be in the description down below. You can watch it there without me pausing, because I pause a lot. It's just a thing I do. I can't help it. Because I feel like, I don't know. I know a lot of other reaction content creators feel this way too. I hate not adding to the video. Like, it's weird. I feel bad when I don't add to the video. So if I feel like I don't get my commentary every 5 seconds, I'm just stealing. So I don't like to do that. So I pause a lot. Link will be in the description down below to go watch the original video. If you want to watch that first and then come back here to deal with my million pauses, you can do just that. I don't have a guide for you. Do what you wish. However, enough of that. Let's hop into the video. 3, 2, 1, go.
Why did...
Oh yeah, spoilers for My Hero Academia manga. I mean, the thing is, he uses an anime frame, and I know the thumbnail will be his thumbnail, just compressed. So, like, spoilers for the manga. For y'all people who only listen to my videos and don't actually watch them. Because I know I do that with a lot of YouTubers. So just in case, I know there gotta be some people out there like that too.
This. Hi, hello.
Oh wait, sorry.
Why did it come to this? Hi, hello. Yes, My Hero Academia is rushing towards its finale, and while
rushing with a capital RUSHING exclamation point ×3. Gosh darn, we are zooming and like, but no, I really didn't want it to end this way. I'm not gonna lie. Like, that's a whole video for another time. But the way that My Hero Academia is supposed to be ending this year, whew, like, there are so many things you could have done. But I get it. Horikoshi's tired. The man needs a nap. So let's let him nap. I'm sorry.
Some cool is happening. It's also suffering.
Oh, I'm gonna have to censor this.
What is happening? It's also suffering from ending clairvoyance, a phenomenon wherein once you reach the end of a story and look back, the cracks start to show.
That is very, very true. I've never actually heard that term before, but I know exactly what you're talking about.
Happens to everyone, but MHA seems to be very intent on making it as apparent as possible, with the recent final arc being fairly fast and dirty with a lot of its narrative choices.
Fast and dirty. I could make so many jokes in it, but I won't. But yeah, he's right. He's spitting right now.
So let's chat about the most painful one. Mirio Togata.
Interesting, the most painful one. I mean, I really like Togata, I believe. Yeah, there's a video on my channel about how much I love his tragic story. And I'm definitely going to make a follow-up video of that on how Horikoshi shot that tragic story in the foot, quite literally. But yeah, I that's interesting though. The most tragic. I'd say there are, I don't know, there's so many tragic things with the current state of My Hero Academia that I won't go into it in depth in this video because I need to watch it.
Was a juggernaut of popularity within and outside the world of MHA, being one of the most memorable characters during the overhaul arc. A fun,
if not one of, I'd say the, like, I love Overhaul more than I like Mirio in the time of the Overhaul arc, just because I think Overhaul is much more interesting. I think his quirk is a whole lot cooler, but and there, in terms of like community-wide impact, everyone loves Mirio. Like, it's hard. Like, Mirio is essentially the Rengoku of My Hero Academia. Like, you can't say anything bad about him because there is nothing bad about him. Like, I mean, you can, obviously there's going to be the ruination of Mirio Togata that we're going to cover in this video, but in terms of like political, why did I say political? But in terms of universal juggernauts for MHA, in terms of characters, Mirio is up there like beyond, like everyone, like the amount of what ifs out there of what if Mirio got one for all, what if Mirio blah blah blah. Like Mirio is essentially the main character that came in late and hijacked everybody. So it is very, very true that he left a massive impact on the entire fandom and the franchise as a whole. And it does, like, what happens later on in the what happened in the war arc does it dirty. And hold on, I know I'm pausing on this frame for a while, so let me spit before he spits. If I had to guess, like, one of my main issues with Mirio is that he was brought back to do nothing other than to be brought back. Like, it was a narrative through line that Eri was A, going to master her quirk, and B, that Mirio was once again going to become a great hero. That was set up. But due to the nature of the war arc and how much it just had to stuff in there towards the end, the return of Mirio gets one good end of chapter thing. Then he immediately gets invalidated the next chapter because the series power crept him, and the thing is, it was inevitable, right? Because the way the series was going in terms of power creep made it so that everyone was going to get power crept. And that was just inevitable. So you honestly should have just kept Mirio's strategy sealed shut. Like, Eri should not have mastered her quirk until long after the narrative ended. That was an epilogue kind of thing you could do. You shouldn't have brought him back, because now I bet Oceaniz's main points are going to be how Mirio is back in the narrative, but you don't even see him at any of the 3 battles so far. Like, you don't see him in the massive spread with All for One, where he's getting jumped with Endeavor. You don't see him against Shigaraki. You don't see him on the island. I think those are the 3 main groups, unless I'm missing a group. Those are the 3 main points of conflict, and Mirio's not there. Because unfortunately, unlike characters like Tamaki and Edgeroi, who barely, like, I wouldn't even say they survived power creep, but they had, like, their quirks allowed them to somewhat survive power creep, Mirio has nothing. So I don't even blame Horikoshi for not including him because of how high pace, high intense the narrative is. Like, the level of power necessary is to the point where previous top tiers in the verse, like your Bakugos, you throw a 5% Midoriya in the current melee and he's dying immediately. That's how much the series has decided to leap in terms of growth. And due to that, Horikoshi kind of can't bring Togata back without... That's the thing, right? Where you don't like it that Togata's not here and involved. However, I know this is just a me thing, because I'm a filthy power scaler, as I've been called a couple times. I'm a filthy power scaler, so I would complain if Mirio suddenly came in, especially post-War Arc, and was worth anything because of how dangerous he is. Or no, because of how dangerous the world is at this point. I would be a little nettled by that. So it's a catch-22. I want to see Mirio because he's a good character, and you went out of your way to bring him back for some reason. But if you bring Mirio back in anything that's not a supporting role and try to make him do anything against the major threats, I'm going to be like, that doesn't make sense. This dude was overhaul level, and he couldn't even one-shot him. And overhaul was a normal human for the most part. So what do you want me to think he's going to do against these high-tier, normal level threats? Like, unless you throw him up against Toga, he's not going to do anything. So... yeah, those are my main guesses, but let me get back to the video. I've been talking for too long. We are 45 seconds in.
A super cool ability and a likable personality went a long way to catapult Mirio into the hearts of many. Fast forward to today, and he, much like the series itself, is a shell of his former glory.
Ooh, that's a hot take. Is My Hero Academia a shell of its former self? I'm not gonna. Here's the thing, right? I love My Hero Academia. Obviously, I've been is literally, I think, if not I think is the longest running review series on my channel, because I think I have more My Hero Academia reviews up than Four Nights, because I started reviewing it right before Four Nights dropped. So, My Hero Academia is one of the longest running review series on my channel. I've dedicated hours upon hours upon hours of my life to that series. Some of my most popular videos on the channel are because of that series. So I know My Hero Academia pretty darn well. I've dedicated my time to it. And I wouldn't... it's interesting that he says the shell of his former self. And I'm not saying that Mirio isn't, because I agree, Mirio is, but that's, once again, it's not necessarily his fault. It's the narrative that kind of left him behind, and Horikoshi decided to catch him up to a narrative that he could never fit in. So, unfortunately, he's a shell of his former self because he can't be useful. But in terms of My Hero Academia itself, I'd say My Hero Academia has had the problems that it currently has as it's rushing towards its conclusion. Always. It's always had these high-paced, low-investment issues. But now that we're rushing towards the end, now that we have an end date, we know it's supposed to end this year, we are counting down the days, we're counting down the weeks, we're counting down the months. There's no more hope. There's no more hope that X such and such character is going to get anything. There's no more hope that such and such is going to happen. Like, we know what must happen by Endgame, and Endgame is right around the corner. So now that we have that end goal in mind, we're a lot more critical of this year. That's where he said the narrative clairvoyance thing, right? Now that we have knowledge that it's going to end, we're a lot more critical of the ideas that are currently being presented, even though we wouldn't have been more critical if we knew nothing. Like, say My Hero Academia was supposed to go on for another 3 years or something like that. I wouldn't be as harsh on it, because, knowing me, I probably would still be mean, but that's just me. But in terms of other people, like, I know people like Oceaniz and other people, avid defenders, and for good reason, they're very good defenders. Oceaniz is very good at defending My Hero Academia. They wouldn't be so pressed on it if we didn't have an end date. So I see what he means by the whole shell of his former self argument, but at the same time, not entirely, because these issues, I feel like, at least to me, these issues have always been present. It's just that they're exacerbated now because we're towards the end. Hold on, let me let him rock again.
Reminder of the difficulties the series has faced in the last year or so. What happened? We should first establish what made Mirio.
Yo, wait, real quick. I know I keep pausing, but still, I told y'all. You want to go watch the original video? Go watch the original video. But what I love the scrolling background he has, like the panels, the red. I don't know. It's a very cool transition. It's a very cool transition background. Sorry, I just want to say that.
Work in the first place, and through extension, also mention Eri. Mirio was.
Yo, Eri is the Chekhov's gun that has been sitting on that shelf, and I'm just staring at it worriedly. Anyone who's been watching My Hero Academia reviews, it should be in the card. You should be able to go see it somewhere. Like, they should be floating around somewhere, or you can just go look it up on the channel. It's a whole playlist of all the reviews I've done. I've been terrified of Eri like for the longest time, because my fear of her invalidating the entire plot is ever relevant. So I'm glad he's going to touch on it. Let's go.
Essentially an obstacle for Deku.
Not in that way, you freaks. Nah, let's go.
Tailor-made to reveal his shortcomings by forcing comparisons. He is born as close to quirkless as you can get, with a terrible ability that is only one backfire away from killing him, and yet he turned it into one of the greatest weapons in the series. Despite adversity, he is ever cheerful and ready to show what he's made of. His imposing physique juxtaposed against his simple, friendly face inspire both admiration and trust, qualities of both a great leader and a great hero.
Facts.
He is, by all intents, meant to be a superior to Deku. But he's also meant to be a warning. Power and charisma are great, but you know who else had both of those? All Might, who nonetheless failed as he overexerted himself while shouldering all of society's burdens on his own. And so, in the same vein, Mirio rushes ahead by himself during the overhaul raid, attempting to save everyone himself, but only ending up sacrificing his future. This showcases the potential path Deku could walk, where no matter how great he becomes, it is all for nothing if he falls victim to the same unilateralism as All Might. Meanwhile,
he's barring right there. He's barred. But and once again, I haven't read the overhaul arc in a while. The last time I read the overhaul arc in full is when I went to rewrite it. You can go check that out too. But in the overhaul arc, didn't he go ahead because overhaul was escaping? Like, if Mirio had waited, then boom. I mean, I guess you can make the same argument for All Might though, right? Like, if All Might didn't take up the mantle of greatest hero ever and like didn't fight back against the tide of villainy, nothing would have changed, and it may have been a slower process. So I'm gonna err on that, but his general point about how Mirio is essentially a warding tale from Midoriya, yeah, that is literally the entire narrative purpose of Mirio, which is very, very good, and I especially like the way he summarized that. He made an entire video in about a minute, so that's really, really good.
Eri functions as a symbol of victimhood and recovery. Her
That's facts.
power is game-breaking, story-breaking, and
You hear that? Let's get it one more time for the people in the back.
All Might. Meanwhile, Eri functions as a symbol of victimhood and recovery.
Not that.
Her power is game-breaking, story-breaking even.
Fact! That's why I'm always afraid that Chekhov's gun is too snap. Like, the fact that Horikoshi introduced that halfway through the narrative, like, that is an endgame tier ability. Like, not gonna lie, that's like, here's the thing, like, imagine if the universal spirit bomb, right, was introduced in the Pilaf arc. I know that's not a apt comparison, but like, think about that, right? Think about that high level of power, potency, and destruction was introduced to Goku all the way back then in Dragon Ball, pre-Z, pre-everything. Or for a better example, imagine it essentially One Punch Man. One Punch Man, but instead of the beginning of the narrative about halfway through. Say you just skipped to Endgame halfway through your narrative. That's what Eri did, and that was why I've always been looking at the character with like a fear, and I've been shivering. Let me let him go.
And for it, she herself has been broken many times, enduring horrible pain at the hands of her grandfather's zealous ward. Her existence is one of pain, and must therefore be saved and then nurtured back into society. She works well for this, as she is instantly likable and pitiable, and emotionally saving her promises a great reward for the story. Namely...
He's spitting. Well, I think he better start spitting. I hate what he's about to go into. If he's about to go into what I think he's about to go into. So, we'll see.
Nurtured back into society. She works well for this, as she is instantly likable and pitiable, and emotionally saving her promises a great reward for the story.
Facts.
Namely, an immense power. Rewind. This...
Okay, he doesn't go into the infinite 100% one for all thing, but I have a massive issue with that. Once again, you can just... There's so many videos I've done about My Hero Academia now that I think about it. But, I don't know, you could quickly search up the failure of Overhaul versus Midoriya. Like, that final fight, I think it's so stupid. I hate infinite 100% one for all, just as a concept. I explained it more in that video. I'm not going to repeat myself too much here, because time.
However, can only be achieved if she is recovered on that emotional level, as reliably controlling a quirk is impossible as long as the darkness of her past looms over her.
Facts.
These two characters being introduced together isn't a coincidence. We are supposed to immediately wish for Eri's power to become controllable as an extension of getting our lovable Tom back on track.
Question for my people out there, for my MHA fans. Question to y'all. Did you know the like button is free? But another question to y'all. Did y'all want Mirio to come back? Because I was actually really, really fine with the idea that he'd just have to live with it. Like, it's not like, oh my god, his quirk back after his fail. Like, that's the thing, right? Once he fell at the Kamino Ward incident, once that happened, he was done. Like, he wasn't a viable combatant anymore. So I honestly was kind of praying on Mirio's downfall, and I never wanted him to come back because it seems like it would ruin the story. Like, the whole warning sign that Togata was for Midoriya essentially becomes undone the moment you once again introduce a power that can undo it. The narrative stakes, the story-breaking power of Rewind, would have broken the entire narrative value, the narrative heft, if you will, of the overhaul arc. It's fine for Eri to get a mastery of her power, but I think it's very easy to write it so that Togata can't get his power back, because his quirk was rewinded out of existence. You can't like, if you're going back, you aren't going to rewind. You could easily argue that. Like, you could just say, oh, it looks like Eri's quirk can't restore you because your quirk was already taken away. So if she were to rewind you further, you may just de-age. Like, you won't actually get your quirk back. I think that would have worked just fine, because that would have kept Mirio as a tragic character, but given him what he wanted. He wanted to save people, so he saves Eri. She gets control of her power, but he can't get his power back because that was the cost he paid. He was the ultimate example. Like, not the ultimate example. All Might's the ultimate example, obviously. But he was the example that fits in for the point relative to Midoriya. All Might was always a faraway icon for Midoriya. Meanwhile, Togata was someone who was closer to the level of Midoriya. So by keeping him out of the narrative, it acts as a permanent warning mark rather than a temporary one. So I was always hoping for Mirio to fail and never get his quirk back. But is that just me? MHA fans, tell me, did you want Mirio to get his quirk back and jump back into the narrative? Because I low-key didn't, but let's let it rock.
The series thus forms a twofold promise of sorts. Mirio will get his powers back if Eri is taught to control her quirk by saving her from Overhaul's trauma. Now, this would naturally seem like a long and arduous process.
Facts, and that's what I'm saying. Like, narratively, I guess that's the catch-22 I'm in, right? I didn't want Mirio to get his quirk back at all, really. To be fair, I didn't want him to ever get it back. But if you did have to give it back to him, give it back to him way past the point where it matters. Like, let our main plot end, and then in your epilogue chapters, you reveal that Eri, after like 10 years of training, managed to get her quirk under control enough that she could somehow restore his quirk, right? That would have been fine for me, because the lesson would have stuck at that point for Midoriya. So he would have learned the lesson, years would have passed, he would have gone under his development, society would have changed by that point. So finally, the lesson can be undone, essentially. But so soon is the issue, and that's what he's about to get into.
Overcoming trauma is a Herculean task, and any piece of media depicting that has the responsibility to take it slowly and seriously.
He just showed a few frames of the best character in all of My Hero Academia, Papa Endeavor. Put some respect on his name, put some clout on his name, and he's spitting right now. He's spitting. He's spitting.
More diegetic level, Mirio's return to form necessitates a certain level of gravitas because of what it would mean to the series. The having and not having of quirks is the central categorical inequality of MHA's world.
This is facts.
And meddling with it is and should be a big deal. The first time it's meddled with is when Deku receives One for All, reversing his position in the world, and that is treated with an immense amount of time, detail, and effort.
He is spitting ridiculously right now. He's spitting immaculately, if you will. He is spitting immaculately right now. And that's due to the fact that it seems like he's tackling a different sort of idea. I will admit, he's going down a different route than I would when explaining this, but he's still explaining. He's spitting.
Mirio getting his powers back would be the second time this inequality is trumped, and thus, it would need just as much narrative weight and time.
Facts.
This situation lays out a fairly clear path forward. Eri and Mirio will, together, as caretaker and child, pop up in the story periodically to parallelly develop this gradual recovery towards Eri restoring Mirio's ability. A few key aspects here is that such a journey would, logically, have to be A, fairly slow in order to both balance at what point Eri's rewind becomes a narrative factor and to honor the difficulty of their respective arcs.
Facts. Big facts.
B, gradual, as an extension of that slow pace, showing us the little progresses and victories on the way so that it feels earned and rightful, and C, in the background.
Extra facts on B.
Acclimates to
Oh, well, yeah, and in the background.
moving on from her days as a test subject. It's clear she still has a long road ahead of her, but progress is being made bit by bit. Anyway, in the war arc, all of this is resolved in a 2-page flashback after Mirio suddenly appears with his quirk having been restored off-screen. But progress is being made bit by bit. Anyway, in the war arc, all of this is resolved in a 2-page flashback after Mirio suddenly appears with his quirk having been restored off-screen.
Yeah, that happened. Yo, I'll never forget the comment section on that video, for one. But two, I remember reading that and being like, no, I read the spoilers for that, and I was like, no way. Like, because that's the thing. The end of the war arc drags that arc down so much, because it's cheeks. But well, let's let him rock, because he essentially had my exact same reaction. Like, it wasn't even just that, it was the whole end of the war arc that had me like, what? But this reaction is very apt.
This is, with no exaggeration, My Hero Academia's lowest point to date.
I don't know. Dobby's a very low point. But I know he likes Dobby. I need to watch. That's another reaction video I need to do. I want to react to his Dobby video, the Dobby experience. And I need to see if I need to listen to some of his Shonen casts about around the time of the Dobby. Well, I know he likes the Dobby reveal, but I want to know how he feels about Dobby's character, especially after the whole Dobby backstory elaboration. I definitely want to see that because I've been calling on Dobby for a while now, so I want to see how he feels.
Few reasons. One.
Actually, one.
I cannot tell you enough how absurdly sudden and abrupt this is.
Like, that's the thing. It came out of no. Like, that was so random. Like that you could have had John Cena appear out of the ground, and it would have made as much sense, like, in context, because it was random is not even the word. Insane, ludicrous, any other synonyms you can think of. It was so strange. There was no build up to it. Nothing alluded to it. The only thing that hypothetically alluded to it was the plane reveal. But the thing was, we knew that was Best Genius because that was revealed in that chapter. So, like, it made no sense for Togata to come back at that point when he did. I was blown when I read that. I was legit. My brain was stuttering. I was trying to figure out a reason. I was trying to find a reason. But of course.
After seeing Eri and Mirio periodically for a while, we last leave them with Eri's horn acting up, which in hindsight is supposed to be foreshadowing. But this doesn't actually foreshadow anything.
It doesn't. It just shows her horn is that made me. You know what that actually did when I read that? It actually threw me off because that was foreshadowing to the fact that her horn is still way beyond her control. Her quirk is still way beyond her control. She doesn't really understand it yet. So I thought that was just reinforcement to the idea. Hey, sorry, Mirio fans, he ain't coming back for a while anytime soon because she obviously can't risk it with an unstable horn. That's what that told me. So when Mirio showed up, it was like literally. For my Pokemon players out there, it was a sucker punch. Like, I got hit with priority. I wasn't ready for it. It was +8. I didn't have my psychic terrain up. Like, I was just slobber knocked.
Her horn being weird could mean any number of things, and while this is later emphasized by her horn being gone when she briefly appears later...
That is true. That was actually proper foreshadowing. And once again, I like non-visual storytelling, so I definitely should have picked that up when that happened.
This, again, doesn't immediately mean, oh, she must have gained complete control and healed Mirio. This is especially jarring because the last update we got from her ability specifically was that they were going to start training it. We essentially skipped from time to get good to wow, we got good. We
didn't just get good. We got mastery. And I know people are like, well, technically it's not mastery, she just restored a quirk. She de-aged her dad. Like, her dad doesn't exist. Once again, we don't know how accurate this information is because it came from, I think it came directly from Overhaul himself. But at the same time, if we were to take that information at face value, because at the time Overhaul was saying that, there's no reason for him to be lying. She touched the dude, and he was gone. Like, at best, he was an embryo. Like, his whole clothes were gone. She reverted a man out of existence. Like, that level is nutty. It is nutter butters in terms of how insane that is. So, for her horn to be acting up and for her needing to train it, like, for her to have the fine-tuned control to go from she needs to start training to I'm going to specifically restore the quirk of an individual and not accidentally revert them out of existence, even though my quirk was technically already used on them. Like, the amount of specific control, like, that's like tightrope walking a million feet in the sky kind of control you need to have. That's so specific. And the thing is, the explanation they give for her being able to do that, like her training, quote unquote, to master her quirk, was for her to regrow the tails of lizards. And I know quirks are like a biological function, though, for a transformer like Mirio. It's essentially like blinking. Like, right? Because it's something your body can do. It's not an actual external appendage like a mutant quirk. Like, Ojiro's tail, for example, I could see her, quote unquote, regrowing that. But even then, like, I don't think Overhaul's quirk erasing bullet, if it got shot into Ojiro, would make his tail magically fade away. I think it would cause him to just lose what was called the quirk factor, which was the ability, like the biochemical reaction that would allow him to move his tail. Like, it would essentially shut off that nervous pathway, at least by explaining how erasure worked back in that arc. So, it's insane what she was able to do. Impressive, yes. Scary, even more, yes.
Nothing in between, and that is just not satisfying in any way. Yeah. This leads into a second issue, which is that this moment is a laughably terrible conclusion to these two characters.
This is very true.
Eri's story is, up to this point, handled with great care, as we watch her slowly become part of the UA family.
Yeah, that
being said, by the time the war rolls around, she does not seem ready and fully developed at all. She's still timid and scared, and it doesn't look like she has overcome the lingering shadow of Chisaki yet. The Culture Festival...
Big facts! I'm sorry.
Obviously helped, and the visual of her freeing herself from the shadow over her is a very strong indicator, but still, she doesn't yet look confident enough to attempt anything like restoring Mirio's power.
This is also big facts. Like, I think Horikoshi kind of shot himself in the foot with that, right? Because the shadow of Overhaul that he's had burn away in the Culture Festival, that was like our visual representation. But the thing is, he had the shadow blow completely away. Like, I think the best way he could have done that, once again sticking to that non-visual storytelling, is have Eri have her moment, but have some of the shadow still linger around her. So, like, have it like wrapped around her arms or her wrists, something like that. So her hands are freed, but in actuality, she's still held down a little bit, because that visual storytelling kind of let her... But at the same time, I get why he did that, because it allows for something like what he did with Mirio. It essentially the main point of Aries' character arc to a reader that wasn't expecting it to go slow paced, so your average MHA reader, would have just taken that as, oh, trauma's gone. And that allowed Horikoshi to use it as, up, trauma's gone, so he could do anything with it. I think that was the point of it, but at the same time, shouldn't have did that.
Moreover, we literally never saw or even heard of her making any progress with her ability. No, that is randomly shoved into this flashback for like 2 panels.
Facts.
These 2 panels of Eri torturing lizards is all.
Torturing. It is true though. Like, that's so weird too, right? I mean, it makes sense. It, like, essentially Aries' quirk. Now that I'm a cultured Bleach fan, Aries' quirk is essentially Orihime's ability to reject phenomena, right? So she's I guess her ability is just to like undo the space. So the thing is, right? Did the lizard regrow its tail? No, it couldn't have. It's like the tail got reattached or something like that. It's like the tail popped back up. Because the thing is, rewind wouldn't make sense. Like, rewind, as it's explained, reverting something to a previous state would not make sense. Because that, like, growing a tail isn't reversing, it's going forward. So that would be like an accelerate rather than a rewind. Meanwhile, just a tail magically appearing is even stranger. So I don't know.
We get in terms of justification for her ability, and it happens after the damage is already done. This tender story of a child rising up beyond its trauma is rushed so hard that it's almost as impressive as it is disappointing. Mirio
it is, like I said, it's impressive, but scary.
Walk away looking much better either.
Wait, Mirio.
As we mentioned earlier, his return to the front lines would, reasonably, be treated like a big deal, the end point of an arduous journey. But because of how sudden Eri essentially jumps to the end of her arc, Mirio is dragged with her, since their stories are intertwined. Yeah. And as a result, Mirio arrives at his recovery without his quirkless period having been shown or fleshed out at all.
He never, like, and the thing is, like, Horikoshi actually shot that arc in the foot. Like, I will never forget when Midoriya went in to apologize to Togata for having him losing his quirk, like, trying to admit that he understands his pain. Mirio's like, oh yeah, I don't really care. I'll get it back. He has no displayed sadness about suddenly losing something that made him him. Like, losing your quirk in My Hero Academia, if you were born with it or you developed it at a very young age, is essentially the same thing as like losing one of your primary senses. Like, that's like going from being able to see your whole life to suddenly being blind, being able to taste your whole life to suddenly having no taste at all. Like, being able to hear and then suddenly going deaf. Like, the change that would, the effect that would have on you, especially considering that is literally your entire life up to this point, gone in an instant with one shot, literally one shot of a gun, a goon, if you will. That is crazy. That is actually insane. That he had no he didn't care. And to be fair, I don't blame him that he didn't care, because I don't think Horikoshi cared. He's like, I know, I'm gonna bring it back. He never let us get into that narrative. He never let us feel bad for Mirio, because I don't think he ever wanted us to. He didn't care enough.
Pops in for a gag occasionally and then dips again. But for who Mirio Togata is, the period in his life where he was quirkless might as well not exist. So the only substance, the only progress we get on quirkless Mirio is, again, on that 2-page flashback after his return. And frankly, it's to his detriment. Mirio.
Yeah, and that line hurts too. I've only been on sabbatical for half a year. Not long enough to trigger any nostalgia just yet. So he didn't, once again, it shows how he didn't care. And that's because Horikoshi didn't care. So he just let it slide. And I don't know, it just feels it feels empty. I guess that's the word I'm looking for. It feels extremely empty.
The man closest to number 1. Someone so selfless and kind that he already turned down receiving a quirk once, actually just went up to Eri and asked her to fix it.
Wow. So please, Eri, I'm sorry for using you like this. Won't you try out your rewind power on me? Yo, imagine if she just killed him. Straight. Can you imagine the new trauma? Like, that would be good time. No, I'm kidding. People would be so mad. I'd laugh. But the thing is, imagine, considering I forgot how random it was. He literally just walked up and asked her. Like, imagine she spazzed a little bit and then suddenly he was like a baby, or he was wiped out of existence. That would have been metal. Or of course you would never, but still imagine.
This is so bizarre because it just doesn't feel right. Mirio asking Eri to do something he knows she's afraid of just because he wants to help out the guys is just very weak and kind of out of character.
I mean, I can see that. But Mirio at the same time is someone who would do anything. See, that's the thing, right? It's a catch-22. So I see what Oceanus is saying in terms of like, oh, you really don't want to have characters act in a certain way because. No, I get what he's saying about Mirio being slightly out of character by walking up to the area doing this, but I view it in the same way that he went ahead on his own and risked his life to fight overall one-on-one. Like, the reason he went up to Eri so recklessly is because he knew people were in danger and he knew that he could help in his own mind, and he was willing to take the risk of Eri wiping him from existence and being her test dummy. So I can see that as an in-character thing for Mirio to do, just because of how selfless he is. Like, he's willing to risk it all right here, right now, just so he can go save some people. Just so he can save, who knows, just one person, kind of like he did with Eri. So, it's a gamble I see him taking. That wasn't necessarily out of character for me. Though I can definitely see why he says that, because the whole, like, Eri's scared of her quirk still, or at least from the last time we saw her, she was still scared and unable to control her quirk. So, I don't blame him for that assertion.
But it didn't have to be. The scene frames this as Mirio feeling confident after having seen Eri train, which really could have worked. If Mirio's request was an extension of the deep trust and friendship he built with Eri, that would have been great. But we didn't see any of that. His reasoning is based on evidence we haven't seen or heard of before he mentions it, and his motivation isn't founded on anything actually convincing. He just vaguely wants to come along and see if he can help.
That is very true. It's not like he does. That is actually true. That kind of counterpoints to mine. Like, I don't exactly remember where in the war this happens, this flashback happens, but it's not like, I don't think he got his quirk back in the middle of the war. I think he got his quirk back before the war. He just didn't join the initial attack, which is kind of mean on his part. But if he did, but the thing is, if he did do it in the middle of the war and reports were coming back that things were going bad and people were like dying left and right, I could definitely see Mirio doing this as like a last resort to go in there and help. But I'm not sure when this is placing, so I'm going to trust Oceanus on this one and assume it was placed in an area that the timeline of this event happening where he gets his quirk back is not mid-war, but pre-war.
Is this the first major hero operation in the time that he's been quirkless? It's just all fairly...
I mean, yeah. I'd say so. Like, what else happened? Like, from... I'd say let's see, overhaul to war, nothing really happens, like, plot-wise. Hold on, let me check. In fact, I'm going to pull up the arc list right now. Let me check My Hero Academia arc list. Because you want to talk about major hero operations. I think from Overhaul on, there's nothing. Like, there's no plot for why, at least on the hero side. I know there's plot on the villain side, but in terms of the heroes, not much happens. Hideout Raid, League of It. No, that's different. That's earlier. Rise of the Villain Saga, Provisional. Yeah. Shisaki. Yep, there we go. That's what I need. So, Remedial Course, School Festival, Pro Hero, Joint Training, Meta Liberation Army, Endeavor Agency, Paranormal. Yeah, so Oceanus, nothing happens. Like, nothing happened that warranted Mirio, like, taking this risk, because there were no major hero operations. Unless you, like, the thing is, there was one, you could argue that the pro hero arc where Endeavor had to fight High End was a high stakes, high risk scenario. But that wasn't necessarily a massive scale hero operation. That was just offhand, random villain attack of an extreme degree. So in terms of plot, yeah, there was no real reason for Mirio to take this risk before, but in a massive high-scale war that was going to include the lives and risk the lives of thousands upon thousands of people, yeah, I'd say it's a big enough hero operation to take that risk. So I'm gonna have to disagree with you on that one. That's just because we don't know the world well enough to know if there actually were other side hero operations going on. But I don't think there were.
On a third note, I could actually forgive all of this. As much as I'm whining about it, if all of this were in service of a great moment and a cool further plot development, I could probably look past it. There are other examples in this series where even when something dumb happens, I'm okay with it because it leads to something cool. For example, I think the way Deku gains all of his new quirks is awful and way too fast.
Thank you! Okay, I'm glad I'm not the only one who thinks that. I think, to be fair, I'm just not a big fan of the extra quirk idea as a whole. I know he was. He just doesn't like... I know Oceanus liked the idea of multiple quirks. He just didn't like how Horikoshi did it, which is a big problem he seems to have at the end of the series. And I don't blame him for that, because, I had the same problem.
But I cope, because the new moves have made all of his fights a lot cooler.
I do like some of the... He's not using it creatively enough yet, though. Like, for the level of tactician and combatant that Midori is supposed to be at, I think with the arsenal he has, you could be doing a lot more. And considering the series is about to end, all the chances we had to see him be really, really creative and develop a big, bad final combo moveset for Shigaraki, for our final fight, it's kind of lost. Like, full 100% is cool, but in terms of everything, and I mean everything, I want insanity. Like, legitimately floating into Black Whip combos, into darn near building up charge for Fajin, like snapping. Like, I want him... Like, I'm going to do a whole video on, like, the full potential of Midoriya and what he could hypothetically do with all of his quirks together, especially movement-wise. Like, you could do a lot of things. Just with Horikoshi's dynamic art style, you could do way more things than he does. But I can see why. Because it is on a base level very cool. So I can see why Oceanus is cool with it.
Essentially balancing the question of, was the sacrifice of narrative coherence worth this moment? And the Mirio moment, this up too, because it ruins both Mirio and Eri's character arcs for the sake of Mirio punching a Nomu twice. No, seriously.
That is great. Like, that actually just told me the war arc was dumb. Like, the end of the war arc was dumb, at least. Like, it is crazy that he comes back. This is the conclusion to his entire character arc. This is the conclusion to an entire two-sided narrative. I remember making the exact same complaints in my review. But literally in that quote, still, even my power ain't enough to take down a Nobu with one punch. So, help. He was pointless. He was literally pointless, and he's still pointless now. Because he's too weak. That's the thing. He's too weak to be in the narrative anymore.
All Mirio does is pop out dramatically, punch a Nomu, and then he just vanishes. He literally has not appeared since. All the hoops and bolts...
He's shown up again, hasn't he? Did he not? Oh my, he didn't. I don't think he has. I thought he appeared one more time after that. I forgot. The man's gone. Never mind. We've seen the other two big three members because they're viable, but we haven't seen him. Horikoshi really said appear and disappear. That's impressive.
Shit this moment went through in order to happen was literally just so Mirio could appear for a grand total of 3 chapters. His existence hasn't even been mentioned since. Both him and Eri have essentially ceased to exist. There is a scene later in the manga where we get to see the other 2 of the big 3, and Mirio isn't there. This turns an already bad moment into a complete embarrassment. All those character moments, the drama, the progress, all the cool narrative beats these 2 characters could have had, they were all sacrificed so that Mirio could be the one to save Genist, which absolutely wasn't a job that required him specifically, and to then vanish, never to be heard of again. And so, fourthly, what kind of picture does this paint? We have looked at separate aspects that make this moment suffer, but if we combine them, what are we left with? What happened here?
Nothing happened. And I'm not sure if that's going to be his point. And I'm not talking nothing happened in the One Piece sense. I'm talking nothing happened as in literally nothing happened. Something did happen. It wasted the arc of 2 characters and fully, like, the Chekhov's gun that was sitting on the shelf over there, the narrative piece that could be picked up at any moment, was for the longest time there, but not necessarily loaded. Like, there was no ammunition in it. But by showing me, and I know her horn is lower, but by showing me that Eri has enough fine-tuned control over her quirk to, like button is free, but to possibly but to actually revert the quirk of somebody, and only the quirk. I know she's busted now. The gun is loaded. You easily have a chance. That is a free undo button that you had to confirm when you really didn't have to. So yeah, it actually it's a net negative to the narrative.
Basically, we have a moment that, in all of its aspects, seems to have been constructed with a single purpose: to be a hype cliffhanger for a chapter. This purpose was decided seemingly without care for the specific implications of
I'm not gonna
Mirio
lie. Like, I don't necessarily watch the MHA anime because I don't watch anime in general. This is no offense to the MHA anime as a whole. I know there are much more anime that look worse out there. 7 Deadly Frames, for example. But, jeez, these anime clips haven't been looking the best.
The involved character, which had to then be hastily waved away a chapter later. We can even see a tiny piece of evidence for this in Deku. When Mirio returns, Deku's shocked face adorns the cliffhanger page, with his surprised Lemillion clearly meant as an audience avatar. He is reacting the way we are supposed to react. But in the following chapter, we see that actually, Deku was literally in the room when Mirio got his quirk back, so him being shocked
that is true. I didn't realize
sense. So immediately after the flashback, Deku babbles about how he isn't surprised about Mirio's power, but more so that
it's actually right before the flashback, but the point still stands. Oh, okay. You're here, Lemillion, but how? We got word from the villa about what's happening, so we rushed over using my special permeation mode of travel. You see the villain hide at the night agencies. Oh, okay.
Mirio is here, in the war. He specifically requested to attend. This is such a clumsy sequence of information that Deku almost serves as an artifact of the thought process. Mirio needs to be here for a hype moment. Bet. Let's have Deku react to it so the audience gets that it's a big deal.
Language!
To justify that, okay, he got his powers from Eri. Oh no, is that Deku in there? Okay, he's surprised for unrelated reasons. It really characterizes this scene as having been constructed extremely carelessly.
That's My Hero Academia's whole plot in a nutshell. From start to finish. And I'm saying this with a straight face, even though you can't see my face. So, that ain't the only thing that's recklessly constructed. No, I'm kidding. My Hero Academia has good moments, but still, a lot of it is constructed like this. And this is just like peak, pinnacle cheeks of it all.
Obviously only meant to be a one-off hype cliffhanger, considering how little comes of it. And as a result, the story trips over itself, with ridiculous excuses and absolutely pathetic flashback that fixes nothing. But
is that a Kingdom Hearts reference in my MHA video? I'm gonna start crying, bro. He plays Kingdom Hearts. Does he have a gaming channel? Does Oceaniz have a gaming channel? I need to see him play Kingdom Hearts. Please. Please.
Is that there's no going back. Both Eri and Mirio have now reached the ends of their respective arcs in a mangled and terrible way. And there's no fixing that. It doesn't matter if Mirio appears again in the final arc. The damage is done. Both of their stories had a clear end.
And once again, like I mentioned, this is a trap. Because if Mirio does appear, after you just explicitly showed him not being able to damage a Nobu, if he shows up anywhere and does anything to any mid-tier and above threat, it doesn't make sense. So, he can't show up again, legally. without me attacking it, at least. I know other people won't care, but I'll attack it, gosh darn it.
Mirio would get his powers back. Eri would master Rewind. Both of these have now happened, and with that, their biggest contributions to the narrative and themes are over. And the story seems to understand this, as it cynically wipes their existence off the face of the earth.
Remove Eri. Please, delete the character. Please. Just get rid of her. Get rid of her. Stop it. Stop it. Take the gun off. Get that thing down. Get that thing down off the darn wall. I don't care. I don't want it to be loaded. Get rid of it. Please. Mirio, you should have stayed out of the narratives. Like, not gonna lie, you could just erase him. Keep him in. Like, the point I agree with the most is keep him in the background. Just don't have him. Just don't have him. Leave it to be. Let the tragedy stick. That would have been so much better.
After this moment, it speedruns two of the story's most tender and touching subplots to serve an absolutely worthless moment of vapid, undeserved hype, and it drags down the entire story.
Undeserved hype that lasts for like a week. Like, I remember everyone blew up, Mirio's back, and then it immediately vanished the next week after, because we got another crazy reveal. That wasn't really even crazy, that was stupid. I made a War Arc review, but I think I will re-record that and just talk about the ending, because, jeez.
I guess now we have to ask, why?
Because it had to be
Why
done.
did this happen?
If I had to guess what he's going to say, it's because it had to be done. The narrative's over. Like, we're running out of time. So every single loose plot thread that has been established has to be concluded. So Horikoshi just shoved it out the way because he needed to get it done. Let me guess. Is that it?
To answer, since behind-the-scenes speculation is always iffy, especially
true.
through a language barrier. But my guess is that Horikoshi is just tired.
This is what I've been. That is exactly what I've been saying. Like, if you've heard me in any of my reviews, and I know I keep plugging the reviews, so it's because that's where you get my live thoughts, like my fresh hot off the iron reactions to the certain chapters and stuff like that. But this man is so drunk. He's overworked horribly. And I don't care, right? Like, Horikoshi is an amazing artist, but even artists that are the most amazing at their craft need time. Like, you can have Boichi, you can have Yusuke Nomura, you can have your amazing top tier, top of the line artists out there, but they need time to rest. They're still human beings. They can't just pop out this top tier, next dimensional level art left and right. And with My Hero Academia, which has movies, merch, anime, manga, like all this stuff, Horikoshi probably barely sleeps and eats. The man needs time to chillax, relax, break it down, have something else to do. But he can't, because he has to push through this. And that's why I think he's ending it right. I agree with Oceanus here. He's tired. It's been a long time. It's not, and I'm not saying Horikoshi isn't passionate. I'm not saying he would. I bet Horikoshi, if he had the ability to, would love to have made My Hero Academia 10 times as long. But it's just every human has their limits. So I don't even blame him.
I think we can all agree that the pace of the series has sped up dramatically since the Liberation War. It's not about whether or not you think that is good or not. I think, however, it is objectively observable that things have gotten faster.
And the crazy thing is, things were already very, very fast. It's just that Horikoshi really just put his foot through the pedal for a good reason, though.
Things happen faster and more frequently, and most events are now not really based on preemptive build-up, but rather rely on exciting moments that are later explained by quick flashbacks or blurbs. Think about how the Liberation War was built up for 150 chapters, whereas the final arc war was built up for 30 chapters. Combine this with Horikoshi's outspoken desire to end the series later this year, and you can tell the man just wants to be done with it, and hopes to go out with a bang by having all of his action figures clash into each other. Logic be damned. And I mean, looking at the way Shonen Jump treats its mangaka, can you blame him? Not really, I don't think I can. But that doesn't change the unfortunate reality that when you make a change as big as pacing and information flow to a story this late into the game, there will be collateral damage, there will be sacrifices made. And in this case, Mirio and Eri were two such sacrifices. And that is a shame. As always, thank you all for watching, and a big thank you to all our patrons.
Thank you so much, Mr. Oceanus. That was a great video. I will be reacting to more of your stuff, breaking down more of your stuff. Great content creator. Please go check him out in the description down below. Now, my overall thoughts on the video. Fuaya. I love his editing. Like, hold on, let me go to a better frame to sit at. That's a cool frame. Once again, look at that artwork. You're telling me, do you think you could produce that on a week-by-week basis? That's one panel. I couldn't draw that. Give me, on average, right? If I'm sitting down there and hard focused to reproduce a Horikoshi level artwork, no backgrounds, just the character, inking and everything. I know he has assistants, but still, inking and everything. Just me, hypothetically, we'll say inking makes up for the time period of me, quote unquote, or Hori, quote unquote, just drawing. Let's say he has to create, he's been doing an average of 15 pages with some double spreads in there. So we'll say 16 pages. Imagine having to draw that on a week-by-week basis while you're getting calls about the anime and what Bones wants to change, while you're getting hyped up to write the script for the next movie and design characters for it, while you're on top of this trying to work to get these action figures in 15 different games that are all dropping at the same time licensed, while you're doing all that. Like, Horikoshi, I know he's happy for the success of My Hero Academia. I think any creator of content, whether they be a YouTuber, or an author, or a writer, a mangaka, I don't know, a radio person, like, anyone's happy with the success of their work. But the what it takes to have that success and what goes into it, what comes with that success is extremely, it varies from person. So say like if you are a very successful salesperson, the moment you stop making sales, your success vanishes. You won't be able to do anything. It's not a self-sufficient stream. Same thing for any content creator, right? The reason you'll hear all the content creators go on about like algorithm, I need to keep up this pattern, is because if we break that pattern, like say I fail to upload for a day, bada bing, bada boom, gone. Like I took a month break because life went crazy. My analytics are never the same since. Like legitimately, I got kicked out like violently because I stopped creating content. My value vanished. So that's another thing. You just need to be able to keep producing. And that's the thing that's why I give every weekly mangaka, whether or not I like their story or not, is if you're producing manga on a weekly basis, you have to come up with the story, you have to write the dialogue, you have to draw it. And depending on who you are, if you're a Nagaba who for some reason doesn't have any assistance, you need to draw, ink, write, and design all that on your own and get it in by who knows. We know it's not really a week. Like I know we don't have specifics of how mangaka works, but we know it's less than a week. So you have to do all of that in less than a week. And I know, well, it's his job. Shouldn't he be able to do it? Yes, but everyone needs a break. Like that's the thing. I cannot imagine producing that tier of art that's sitting on screen right now in a week. It would take me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. It would take me probably 3 days alone of consistent concentration to draw and ink every single character like he did there. I'm not talking about the background portals. I'm not talking about the panels on the side. And I'm not talking about the writing of that, the posing. And no, that isn't with me with a reference. Horikoshi has to pop this off the domer. And of course, he can look up references online like most of your artists do. But still, he has to do all that back to back with all the other stuff he has to do. I don't blame him for racking up the pace. I don't blame him for wanting to be done. It's nutty. So that's good. But I went into a whole tangent on his final point about like Horikoshi being good. What do I think about the video itself? I definitely agree with pretty much all of his points. There's some things I disagree with, like the character interpretation of Mirio and like how many people. Well, to be fair, this is once again a me thing though. That's my opinion. Like I wouldn't have wanted Mirio to return, and I wouldn't have wanted Eri to master a quirk until long after our main narrative through line, aka the Shigaraki and Midoriya plot, was done. Or just never in Mirio's case. I would have preferred he was just like an example, just like All Might is, but a more personal example for a level that Midoriya has, especially considering it went nowhere. But hey, maybe like that. So I definitely agree with most of his points. He was spitting. This was a greatly edited video. Wonderful. Some of the best I've seen. He's very good. He's very good at what he does, I will admit. He deserves it. He deserves it. At 100K, he definitely deserves it because of how much work and time he puts into those videos and how well he structures them. They are very well structured. However, I've talked for too long. I've kept you hostage for way too long. If you are still here, if you made it all the way to the end of the video, type down Ocean Reacts. Ocean Reacts in the comment section. But other than that, thank you so much for watching. Please remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe. And make sure you hit that little notification bell so you miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Also, do have a Patreon down below where you support me for as low as $1 a month. Also, in the comment section, if you want to, leave any other videos you want me to react to. I've done reactions in the past. I still have a list of videos you want me to react to from there. But drop them again. Drop new ones you want me to react to. I know a lot of has happened. I know there are some videos that are already on the docket. So expect to see a few more reactions and breakdowns like this popping out soon. But enough of that. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is That Guy with a Pencil, writing off.